Yes, a lot came out of the briefing with the chief whips. You know, at the time that President Jacob Zuma was live on television, the chief whips were in their meeting, probably just discussing what is likely to happen from here on. I'm now joined by the chief whip of the Democratic Alliance, John Steenhuisen. Mr. Steenhuisen, thanks very much for joining us. You guys must have heard while in your meeting the fact that the president has basically said he hasn't done anything wrong, and he can't understand why the rush to get him out. Just your response to that, please.
Well, typical Mr. Zuma, dig in, Stalingrad model, and fight your way out and play for time. Clearly he hasn't read the Constitutional Court judgment. Maybe somebody should provide it to him. Ample reasons of what he's done wrong. The 789 charges of fraud, corruption, racketeering. Ample signs of what he's done wrong. This is Mr. Zuma playing for time again. Unfortunately, Parliament has finally caught up with him. His time is over. By this time tomorrow, Mr. Zuma will not be the President of the Republic of South Africa.
Tell us a little bit about what happened inside the meeting of the chief whips.
Well, the meeting was interrupted while Mr. Zuma was on. We watched a little bit of it. When it became very clear that it was going to be as usual intransigence, we simply continued with the meeting. We're now going into a programming committee meeting where we will propose for a sitting tomorrow afternoon. The motion of no confidence will be moved. It'll be voted upon. Thereafter, depending on the availability of the Chief Justice or his nominee, we will move to the election of a new president by the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa and work towards a SONA on Friday evening. Thereafter, debates on Monday and Tuesday, budget to continue as Wednesday next week. So starting to end the finality stage of this process that's lasted so very long over the course of the last week.
All right, Mr. Steenhuisen, thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to now quickly just call the chief whip of the economic freedom fighters, who are the ones that have, of course, tabled the motion of no confidence that is currently before the National Assembly. Mr. Floyd Shivambu now joins me. Mr. Shivambu, good afternoon. Thanks very much. What does the process now entail moving forward with your motion of no confidence?
Now, look, Parliament is going to sit tomorrow and it's going to debate and vote on a motion which is led by the EFF, and the motion of no confidence against Jacob Zuma. And as we said before, it's a terminative motion of no confidence because from tomorrow onwards, Jacob Zuma will be history. He will no longer be President of the Republic of South Africa. So that is what we're going to be dealing with tomorrow. And despite some of the issues that the ANC is raising, I think the principle has been maintained that the motion is going to be led by the economic freedom fighters, and all members of Parliament and all political parties will debate, will take a vote, and hopefully it will be the first unanimous decision to be taken by Parliament since 1994, where 100% of Parliament votes on an agreement that a president must be removed from office, and that is what we're looking forward to. And this is an issue that should bring unity amongst all South Africans, that if there's a delinquent individual, if there's an incompetent president who thinks of himself, who thinks he's more important than the Constitution, who thinks he's more important than even his own organization, he must be decidedly dealt with so that we do not have recurrence of the same phenomena in the future.
Right. So the ANC must have then proposed the issue to amend the motion of no confidence. It sounds to me as if you guys did not agree to that amendment.
No, look, we said to the ANC that they must bring the amendment in the open prior to us going into the National Assembly tomorrow. So we should know upfront of what are the proposed amendments of the ANC, so that we do not go into unnecessary wranglings of whose version of the motion is better. I'm sure that if all of us agree on the discontinuation of Zuma's presidency, we will be able to establish common ground as all political parties and then debate an EFF-led motion which is in the interest of the country. We have in the past, as the EFF, been led by other political parties, by the UDM, by the DA, in terms of motions that would appear in Parliament or in the court processes. So let's humble ourselves, all of us, and agree to be led by the economic freedom fighters and take a motion of no confidence that is going to bring an end, to an absolute end, a presidency that caused disaster to our country, promoted corruption, and caused havoc in terms of the confidence that people otherwise would have in the prospects of South Africa's prosperity.
All right, Mr. Shivambu, thank you very much for your time. Let me now quickly just bring in Mr. Ngabayom Zikwankwa, who is the Chief Whip of the United Democratic Movement. Mr. Kwankwa, thank you very much for joining us. President Jacob Zuma, while you as the Chief Whips were meeting, decided, he did an interview with my colleague Umzwandi Lembeje. In essence, him basically saying that he, doesn't understand what he's done wrong, and that he's not defying the ANC, but he's just disagreeing with their decision to recall him. Just your response to that.
Well, clearly, President Zuma was giving the middle finger to his own organization, the African National Congress, that deployed him to that office. But I think that the other issue probably at the back of his mind is that he doesn't want to be removed by a kangaroo court called the ANC-NEC because they did not elect him. Parliament elected him into that office constitutionally. So we're saying bring him here, we're ready for President Zuma. Remember, we've just come out of a meeting of Chief Whips where we discussed all the nitty-gritties and the details about how we're going to structure our program over the next few days, in fact, including Monday, because our priority as the United Democratic Movement is to get Parliament back to business. That's what we want, because we want Parliament to focus on issues that matter to South Africans. But you see, insofar as President Zuma's denialism, he was just being his normal self. He was just being a guava juice, honestly, because he seems not to understand the effect of his poor leadership on the country as a whole. But the bottom line, I think what is important about what we discussed today is that we're able to find a common ground on a number of issues, a number of all the proposals, in fact, that were made by the African National Congress on the table today around the program. We agreed with them because we want to finalize this matter as soon as possible. Remember, we've been saying to the people of South Africa that as the opposition, it is in the best interest of South Africans that we bring this matter to finality once and for all. But I think the other issue that is important here is that we will wait for the proposed amendments by the African National Congress so that we too can apply our minds to it, because we want to make sure that the process tomorrow is seamless. We don't fight about petty issues. There's no political grandstanding. It's about removing President Zuma, because as a collective, we have managed to work together on such issues in the past. And South Africans want us to actually just resolve this matter and focus on building SA.
We have reports that the Speaker of the National Assembly has agreed to obviously move this forward. Do we have a time as to when plenary will sit tomorrow afternoon?
It's most likely it will be the normal time, 2 o'clock, but remember we're going to programming where we're going to finalize that, so we can't talk about times, exact times, until that meeting has been held. I think the consultation process has begun with parties, and there seems to be consensus. Then the details will come out of that meeting.
All right. Mr. Kwangwa, thank you very much for your time. We really do appreciate it. Now I just quickly want to call the Chief Whip of the National Freedom Party, Professor Nhlanhla Khubisa. Prof, come a little bit closer. Prof, was it the meeting of the Chief Whips, was it successful? Was it what you as the NFP wanted out of it?
Well, at least the meeting was unanimous in agreeing to the fact that tomorrow we'll have this motion of no confidence debated, and there will be an amendment to the AFF motion, and of course to speed up the process of Parliament, because people have been languishing in anxiety, and we don't want our people to be languishing in anxiety for quite a long time. So the sooner we do it, the better. And tomorrow, therefore, we're going to have plenary, and on Friday, possibly we'll have plenary, and then we have a debate of the State of the Nation address. So things are moving faster. At least we've been vindicated, because we said as the NFP, this thing will started in Pretoria, it moved to Tula House, and it's now in Cape Town. And it will finally be concluded here.
All right. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Prof. If I can quickly just call Obawu Umchaisa from the AIC. Bawo, please come forward. Just the last word from you, Bawo, is tomorrow President Jacob Zuma, the way that I understand it, will no longer be president of the country. What do you as the AIC make of that?
Yeah, I think as the AIC are very much happy, because this seems to be coming to an end. So I've long been looking forward now to this. Even the people of South Africa have been looking forward to this now. So we're going to support the motion, And we are happy that now all parties are saying that they're going to support the motion. So this time around, the motion is not going to be defeated at all. So we're happy about that.
All right, sir, thank you very much. Lulama Nchaisa there from the AIC. Basically, as part of all the chief whips, all the chief whips of the party had a meeting with the chief whip of the majority party here in Parliament, Jackson Mthembu, and it seems that there was agreement that tomorrow the Speaker of the National Assembly has agreed to host the motion of motion of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma. The EFF, the motion will be led by the EFF, and the fact that right now all of those chief whips are now going into a programming committee meeting, rather, where they will discuss the time and exactly how everything will unfold tomorrow. Remember that all of this happens at a time when President Jacob Zuma, just before we started talking to you guys, Peter, in Johannesburg, where President Jacob Zuma had said that chances of him resigning, are minuscule, and that if the ANC, NEC want to recall, then they must recall. So all of that will be moving to Parliament tomorrow, and it seems as if there will be a unanimous vote against President Jacob Zuma remaining as president of the country. From us in Parliament, for the time being, Peter, it's over to you in studio.
Lukanya, thank you very much indeed. So things happening very, very quickly now. The President spoke a short while ago. The opposition party and the governing party, Chief Whip, was in a meeting, and they've decided that tomorrow is the day. So 24 hours from now, it might be all over by that stage. But the President has said that he will make a statement later today. He felt that he needed to get his side of the story out before that, because he was not happy with the narrative that's out there at the moment. But let's continue to go to as many of our